The city, any city, bustling, busy, cosmopolitan, sophisticated even. A great place to live and an horrible place to drive. Assuming you can stand the enormous soaring insurance premiums, you've then got to accept that at some point, if you don't ding it yourself, somebody will ding your car for you. So this week on Car File, 3 cars specially designed for city life. And so we've chosen 3 chariots, none of them exactly monsters, but all of them useful in city life. And first up, the mighty Perodua Kelisa. Okay, now look, I'm going to give you a minute or two to get yourself together, all right? Perodua Kelisa, stop laughing. Front, we have a 1-litre engine, which, no, doesn't really set your world on fire. But it's a little 3-cylindered unit, and it's hilarious. It makes a fantastic noise. And despite being only 1 litre, it's got a surprising amount of torque. The power is immediately there from low revs, which makes it incredibly easy to drive around town. Really, very. It'll scamper from 0 to 60, traffic permitting, in 14.8 seconds, which isn't very quick. But when you realise that some of the cars we're looking at in this programme take nearly 18 seconds, this is a rocket. Sometimes, when you're looking at a car, you've really got to look beyond the figures and the bare facts and consider the whole car and how it makes you feel. And in this instance, it makes me laugh. It's a really fun little car to be in, mostly because it's not trying to be anything that it isn't, just the way it looks for a start. It's just a small car. It's not trying to be clever, it's not trying to look like a spaceship or a piece of electronic wizardry from a teenager's bedroom. It's just a small car. Then there's the drive, that chunky little 3-cylindered 1-litre engine providing bags of torque whenever you need it. It is a doddle to drive. The steering is weighty enough without being exactly heavy for certain. There's a huge amount of visibility with all this glass around me. I really can see everything everywhere. There's absolutely no problem. For anybody looking for a first car, something like this would be a doddle. And then there's the kit. It's not bad. I've got electric windows and, well, power steering, and that really is all I could possibly need in a car like that. Now, I'm going to defend the Perodua Kelisa. Others may laugh, and let's be honest, others do laugh quite a lot. But I'm going to stand up for it. I think it's a friendly, chirpy, chipper little car, and what's better news is in the long run, they might feel a little bit flimsy. They are proving to be very tough little critters indeed. Just because the numbers aren't big, 54 brake horsepower and a 1-litre engine, the little Perodua Kelisa manages to boast a massive personality. That 3-cylindered engine may not be hugely powerful, but it's got bags of torque and makes an entertaining noise. It'll do 55 miles to the gallon on average. It's not going to cost you a fortune to run. And so we go from a bargain basement Malaysian to a cut-price Korean in the unlikely form of this, the Daewoo Matiz. Just one look at the Daewoo Matiz is enough to let you know how futuristic, clever and different it really is. It's lying. There's nothing futuristic about this. It's just a little car with a funny face. I'm sorry to be cruel. Some people really like the look of this thing. Personally, if we all have to drive around in cars like this, I want to walk or even get the bus. Desperately boring. For me, it's trying too hard. These looks hint at things that it cannot deliver. It isn't clever, it isn't funky, it isn't urban, it isn't chic. It's a small car. Amazingly, despite the interior, compared to the Perodua anyway, looking positively plush, it's quite swoopy and curvy with reasonable plastics in here, it's got no kit. Watch this, I'm going to open my window. Where's the... That was 2002. It's also desperately slow. Best part of 17.5 seconds to hit 60 miles an hour. If you can be bothered, though, I suspect this is aimed at people for whom 60 miles an hour is a distant and crazy dream. The engine is raucous and noisy and not particularly effective at providing much in the way of forward-going motion. The gearbox is ponderous and glitchy. It's like stirring a big bowl full of porridge. This shape, though, and the unusual looks do have the advantage of meaning there's a reasonable amount of space in here. It's almost like a mini MPV one-box configuration, but it's nothing like the packaging that you get in, say, a Mercedes A-Class or a Toyota Yaris. It ain't that clever. It actually costs more than the Perodua, like over £7,000, which... That's not right. That is not right. It's got nothing on it. Suddenly, looking back at the Perodua, I realised what it had and what I haven't got here. This is very, very basic. And Daewoo, come on, you're not going to pay for the badge, are you? It rolls so much when you go through the corners. The seats are made out of cardboard, at best. Damp cardboard. For my money anyway, but I'm the car tester. It's just too self-conscious, it's trying too hard, it's overly packaged. It would be far better if it were to look simpler. Then you could forgive it being simple. Despite its quirky face, the Daewoo Matiz really is a pretty standard little motor. This is the SE Plus, so it does get an extra bit of equipment, but it's hardly bristling with technology. An 800cc engine never makes for particularly scintillating performance, 0 to 60 in a lengthy 17 seconds. It may look a bit weird and wacky, but as I think we've discovered, it is very much just a basic little car with a basic little price tag. And we better get used to seeing little cars like this around because there do seem to be more and more of them on the streets. But don't just take my word for it. Here are the thoughts of a couple of motoring hacks on city cars. With rising fuel costs and big car taxation, could it be then that in the future super minis are all we'll be driving around in?
No, I'm sure that as fuel costs rise and as taxation penalties increase, there will still be a feeling among customers that they want something special. They will not just settle for super mini cars. The car, as I say, is an icon. It's something special that they'll want to aim for, to achieve, and to cherish. And so I don't see any diminution of the high-powered sports car and prestige market.
It's obvious that the manufacturers get good revenue from small car sales. So could we one day see a super mini from the exotic manufacturers?
If you're asking whether the likes of Porsche or Ferrari would ever produce a super mini, I think it's safe to assume for the time being that Ferrari don't need to, because Fiat can do that quite happily. But there again, whoever assumed that Porsche would ever produce an off-roader, and 10 years ago, did we ever anticipate that Mercedes would produce an A-Class?
A Ferrari Super Mini. Well, they make a Porsche off-roader, so who knows. That's it for part 1 of Car File. Join us for part 2 after the break, when we'll be reviewing the Vauxhall Agila, the car that brings you your very own Popemobile. See you in a few minutes. Hello and welcome back to Car File. This week on the programme, city cars. We've already had a go in the Perodua Kelisa, and I actually quite like it. We went crazy in the Daewoo Matiz. Well, it's not as funky as it looks, but it's not bad. And now it's time for the Vauxhall Agila. Oh, I've got something like this at home, in my kitchen, only that one's white. Still, at least it's got interesting upholstery. Straight away, the Vauxhall feels a much more substantial car than the other two, and it is a lot bigger. It's wider, longer. One thing that surprises me is, yes, you do get an awful lot of space. Quite a lot of it seems to be above my head. Now, unless top hats come back very soon, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with that space. Again, visibility is excellent in a town car. That's exactly what you want. Also, the fact that I can gauge where every corner is means it's a doddle to park and to get through narrow gaps. Obviously not gaps as small as the Matiz or the Perodua. But then again, think about it. An extra few inches here and there. How many times, when it comes to parking, does having a car that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 inches shorter than another car really make all the difference? Really? I mean, the difference between a Volvo Estate and a Perodua, yeah, that makes a difference in parking. Between this and the Matiz, yeah, same. The driving experience is, well, it's not really an experience, it's amazingly numb, very remote. The gearbox is a tad reluctant, and the steering, well, I've no idea which way the wheels are pointing until we start to go in a direction. There's just absolutely no feedback, but you really can't criticise it for that. It's not designed for that. It certainly looks reasonably luxurious. Perhaps luxurious is overstating it a little. And actually, when you compare it to the Matiz, certainly, it's got everything you need. Electric windows, electric mirrors, a CD player, sat-nav and aircon next. Where it falls down, to my mind, is in having any personality at all. It is as bland as cling film. It has nothing to say for itself whatsoever. It has no interesting point apart from an odd amount of space above your head, which I still don't understand. It is again woefully slow. It will go from 0 to 60, but you'll be old or just lose interest before it happens. Allow half a day at least. For the best part of £7,000 in the Vauxhall Agila, you get a 12-valve 1-litre engine, but it's no firecracker. 60 miles an hour takes 17.5 seconds. On the plus side, there is quite a surprising amount of space for what is still a very small car. You'll be able to park it anywhere. No doubt it is a lot bigger than the other two. You could probably fit the other two in it, but one thing it can never claim to be in any way is quick. And if you do want a city car with a ton of speed, try this. Rich, they said, you're going to be driving a Volkswagen Lupo. Me, I said, alone with a Lupo, the smallest car in Volkswagen's range, and a shopping cart to boot. Oh, I can barely contain myself. Yes, they said, you are, but it is the GTI. Well, that does make a bit of a difference. Before we even get to thinking of what it's like to drive, just take a gander at the thing. Everything's there. 15-inch alloys filling those flared arches to perfection. Side skirts, front and rear spoilers, chromed twin tailpipes. It may be small, but it looks hot. It's no swamp donkey on the inside either. Again, everything's here. Sport seats, leather covered, very supportive. We've got an aluminium and leather gear knob, chrome bezels around the instruments, that's chrome rings to you and me. And all, of course, finished to that usual high VW standard. It looks and feels great and will do 20 years from now. It's named after the Latin word for wolf, you know, the Lupo. The GTI's 1.6 engine delivers 125 brake horsepower at 6,500 RPM, which will power the baby VW to a none too shabby 127 miles an hour. Add this to a 0 to 60 time of 8.3 seconds, and I'm sure you'll agree, none too shabby figures. It's not all good news though, as always, because there's a rather nasty-ish surprise lurking around the corner, and that's the ride and handling. At first you think, oh, feels like a hot hatch, nice and firm, predictable and grippy. But actually, it's a bit too bouncy. It's as though either the car's too light or the damping setup wrong. So it tends to bounce and rebound off bumps and float over them, rather than stick to the road properly, which is a real shame, because that engine deserves better. That said, it ain't slow, it ain't wallowy, it ain't a pig to drive, it's still going to look and feel good. It may well be that it's a small car, but it still comes with a hefty price tag at just under 13 grand. But just because it is small doesn't mean it has to be cheap. Think about Diamonds and Kylie Minogue. They're small and they're not cheap. You've got to look at its size as a positive thing. Add to that the great engine, good looks and VW build quality, and suddenly the idea of a palm-top GTI starts to have some appeal. The hot Lupo really is pretty expensive for a small car, but what you get is not just impressive figures, and they are impressive. A 1600cc engine means 0 to 60 in 8.3 seconds. No, the really important bit is the general feel of quality. It's so well put together. It's like a giant piece of jewellery. I'd quite like to wear one, round my neck, on a chain. If you haven't seen anything you fancy so far, try any of these, our 5 alternatives in reverse order. In 5th place, the unusually named Daewoo Matiz. At 6,390 quid, it's not bad value. You get a 1-litre engine, it'll scamper to 60 miles an hour in 15.6 seconds. In 4th place, and from perhaps a more mainstream manufacturer, the Seat Arosa. It is extremely well built for a very small car. In 3rd place, the Hyundai Amica. Once again, things are starting to look a little bit unusual. And whilst it will do the business, 60 miles an hour in 15 seconds from a 55 brake horsepower engine, I do have some concerns about the build quality. In 2nd place though, the VW Lupo probably will be here in 100 years. The figures aren't bad either. 94 miles an hour top speed is fine. 17.7 seconds to 60 miles an hour though is none too rapid. In 1st place though, our top alternative city car, the Citroën Saxo. It's very much a proper little car. That's because it's been knocking around a while and it's cheap, good value. So it's decision time for our 3 city slickers. We've awarded each car points in the 5 car file categories, which means one of them will emerge as top dog. So which one is the top city slicker and which one's just a country bumpkin? When it comes to practicality, we have 2 coming in last place. 3 points go to the Perodua. It is a reasonable size and it has got 4 doors, remember. And the Daewoo, also 3 points, 4 doors once again, and not bad storage. Top marks though of 4 points to the Vauxhall. It is, after all, the biggest of the 3 by quite a long way. On the value stakes, the Daewoo lags behind with just 2 points. It's really not very cheap, and for that money, it's very, very basic. Just 2.5 points for the Vauxhall, a decent level of equipment in here, but it is quite expensive. The Perodua, though, is the clear winner here. It's the cheapest on the market by a long way, and gets a pretty decent level of kit. Okay, these are purely practical little city cars, but come on, who wants to look a complete wally? So when it comes to style, I'm afraid the Vauxhall gets 1 point. Let's be honest, it is in fact ugly. 3 points not so bad to the Daewoo, it's an unusual if rather friendly looking face. For my money though, 3.5 points to the Perodua. I'm going to stand by what I've said, I think it's a cute car. None of these cars are going to be bought for their handling, let's be really truthful. Nevertheless, it is important. We get a joint last place with 3 points each to the Daewoo and the Vauxhall. They are neither of them particularly exciting. I've got to say though, the Perodua again in front with 4 points. It is not a bad little thing to drive. In terms of out-and-out performance, I'm afraid the Daewoo lags behind once again. It's positively drab. 2 points, that's all. The Vauxhall not that far ahead, 3.5 points. Maybe it is just that bit bigger. You pay a price in performance. The Perodua may not be a rocket ship, but that buzzy little 3-cylinder engine throbs away gorgeously. It gets 5 points. And so the overall scores. In third place, lagging behind with just 12.5, the Vauxhall. It might be the biggest, but that is about its trump card. In second place, 14 points go to the Daewoo. It's not a bad looking thing, positively cute, but really not much kit and quite a lot of money. In first place then, with a fantastically impressive 20.5 points, the Perodua. It is cheap, it is reasonably quick, it's enormous fun, I reckon it's cute, and I reckon it's the perfect city car. Well, it may not be the most glamorous motor on the market, but when it comes to punting around town, the cheap, cheerful and cute Perodua wins the day. Good for it. And that's it for this week on Car File. I'll see you next time for more.